Skywatcher truly is a technology company that was started because of UAP. After we turn on the dog whistle, UAPs literally come to us day after day. Jordan, our Psionic lead, came up to me and Alex like, hey, tomorrow we're going to see, a conflict in the sky. We're going to have different UAPs are going to come in, and there's going to be...
He sensed that.
He said that.
Whoa.
We're seeing multiple classes, 3 classes today. We saw them all with binoculars and or the naked eye, which is really new for us. We've not had that experience in the last 5 years.
These days, since our technology platforms are so high to generate effects they could mimic, and our detection platforms are so well advanced so we could see a lot more, then it really is a zoo of options and possibilities.
We have 3 spectrums, and we see them on radar. Then we get in a helicopter and go chase them, and they evade us, right? But they evade us because the ground can see them evading. From the air, we've never laid eyes on them, right? We're sitting there with binoculars, sitting there with S-Wear cameras. The reason why the electro-optical can see them, cannot, is because that little bit of extra is where they're actually emitting light. I think the government's conflicted right now. I think they have advanced secret physics and knowledge and science.
I agree with you.
That they've had probably since at least the end of World War II.
You know that there's physics knowledge held by aerospace companies that is not
There
known.
certainly is materials knowledge.
Materials, material
which
science.
involves topological physics or whatever.
What I think a lot of people expect in this subject is for everything to tie together so neatly and perfectly. It's like the things you're seeing in the sky are the things that we have on the ground, are the secret science things, is the consciousness stuff, and it all fits together in this neat thing. And then also space aliens, and they're from Zeta Reticuli, and you're like, oh, it's easy. And in fact, all of those things could be their own disparate threads.
The skies are not classified, and we are seeing things in the skies. Those things seem to be there all the time. Mid-turn, before he could actually turn it to the UAP, the UAP hit us with an energy weapon.
Whoa. I'm here with James Fowler. It's an honor to have you, man. I am beyond intrigued at what you're doing with Skywatcher. We have a mutual friend, Jake Barber, who gave me the honor and privilege of helping tell his story after Ross Coulthart came out as the first person, one of the first people to retrieve this craft of non-human origin, an egg-shaped craft. And he mentioned when I was interviewing him that he had this private enterprise he was working on called Skywatcher. Since then, you guys have dropped a couple of really incredible videos, the second of which I have to say was pretty mind-blowing.
Each UAP class has different characteristics. Some shimmer, some tumble, some spin. Some look like they're alive and they just fly like a living object in the sky. UAPs are extremely hard to image. What is seen with the naked eye is generally not what is seen under camera.
Even me, I'm sometimes skeptical, like what are these guys gonna find? And I thought the taxonomy, you guys had 9 classes of UFOs that you showed, was really impressive. And you're, I think, pushing the field forward with that categorization and with, the sensing techniques you're using. So James, thank you for being here today. Appreciate you.
Happy to be here, Jesse.
And we're on this, what is this? This is the USS Hornet right now.
Yeah, on a museum, a floating museum.
A floating museum, UAP hackathon. So super cool. And I guess the main question I want to start with is, how does one get into a private enterprise around detecting UAPs? What's the origin story for you?
Well, I started out in the military, spent a career there, retired as a sergeant major, retired in 2020, and spent about 23 years working for the government, deploying a lot, jumping out of airplanes, doing interesting things in bad places, usually. After I retired, I started several companies, and some of my companies were contracted by the government to do different war game projects. At one of those war game events in 2021, we had an observation. It turned out to be Class 1 UAPs, and we originally thought that was a U.S. government-made tool, so we were very secretive about it. We protected it and did all the due diligence to kind of make sure that didn't get out anywhere, just in case it was made in America and need to be protected. So that's how we kind of got into it. It was actually by accident. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, I am the, if you will, the lead operations guy. I'm the guy who drove the discovery, but I'm not the pioneer that actually discovered it, right? So there's two pioneers in this field who wish to remain anonymous right now. One is Mr. K, I'll say.
Okay.
And he's a really cool dude. He's like a physicist, makes jet engines, flamethrowers, works on hot rods, and does physics for fun as well. Like, he's really cool dude. He is actually the first one on our team that figured out that, hey, there's UAPs over us, and hey, you got to come look at this. And we discovered, okay, there's something going on here. And if it wasn't for him, we would not have figured out the dog whistle. We have not have progressed to where we're at. It is because of him that we've arrived here.
Sounds like a genius. Sounds like a cool guy to hang out with.
Oh yeah, he's a very, very cool dude. And the other one is Mr. D. He made a discovery with the signals. So for a while, we couldn't detect the UAPs with radar. Actually, the radar was detecting them, but not telling us it was detecting them. And Mr. D figured out, hey, we can detect signals from these craft and geolocate them or direction find them in the sky, and then put the camera on it, and there it is. So those are really the two pioneers that, like, I feel like it's not fair if I don't mention them, because they are the pioneers here, right?
Yep.
I am merely the person who harnessed their knowledge and their pioneering attitude and capabilities to arrive where we are at today. If this is an advanced species and is smart enough to do what it's doing, they have the upper hand, and we are the little ants under the magnifying glass. We had a Class 7 UAP. We went ahead and launched the helo to pursue it. Before the helo got here, it actually came and hovered right over us. For the first time, we saw a Class 7 with the naked eye. It was very glinty, looked metallic. Through our optics, we've always thought it was purple or black. Frankly, the reflections, it looked like chrome almost color.
So you mentioned simulating war games and these UAPs show up. Do you think, and obviously you get into speculative territory and, kind of philosophy, and I really want to get into kind of the hard data because that's what you guys sort of specialize in. But you think that might kind of show that we're living in some sort of three-body problem universe or something where they don't want us to harm ourselves? They show up around nuclear sites. They seem to across the U.S., but even abroad as well. And does that signal that they don't want us to, blow ourselves up or something? Or why do you think they show up around these sort of war games?
So we have some ideas on that, and I have some opinions on that. We'll say, for example, in 2021, the first time we saw them, we were running a war game for the government. The deliverable for that war game was tactics, and we had a blue team and a red team. The blue team's job was to bring American-made, government-made, and commercial-made protective systems for blue forces. Think air defense, think counter-drone, think other things. And then the red team was, again, American-made, as well as one-off hobbyist-type drones, aircraft, and other things. And the red team's job was to penetrate the airspace of the blue team or cause them to be able to basically tactically envelop the blue team and cause them to have a loss. And the blue team's job was to stop that. And so we're running this event, and I'm up on the roof of a very tall building with two young interns with binoculars looking for drones, right? So we're up there. I think we were 2 weeks into the project at this point. Every day, 12 hours a day, running the war game, and we were looking for drones as the mission controller, project controller, if you will, so I can modulate launch now, don't launch now, or hey, blue team, did you guys even pick up on that drone that was just here? So I'm trying to modulate the exercise and keep things flowing so we can be effective in developing tactics. And my camera operator, Mr. K, was like, hey, you have to come see this. There's something going on. So understand, we're up on the roof scanning the sky with binoculars, listening, seeing, and we see drones, but we don't see this other stuff. So I go down to the truck, and he's like, look at this. And he shows me the Class 1 formation of 7, the first sighting we had. This was the last day of the event, so we were shutting down a few hours later.
And just for the audience, Class 1?
Class 1's the Tetra.
Okay.
So it's a black-bodied object. It tumbles and spins at a very high rate of speed. We're shooting at about 26 frames per second, I believe. And between each frame, it's changed drastically in its flight characteristics and signatures so that we can only see a little bit of it, and we can't really derive the shape. It looks like a tetrahedron, but it's really hard to say from the footage we have. It looks like a tetrahedron that's wearing a hat. And the hat looks like it's made out of atmosphere, as in If you have a low pressure, high pressure differential, you can get vapor, right? As in when a fast moving jet breaks the speed of sound, you see the vapor on the wings. That same effect looks like what we're seeing around the Class 1, and it basically wears it like some kind of field is holding it in place, and it's kind of there around it, kind of hiding the black body from the observer, if you will. So, and then that vapor tends to flash. It catches as it's moving kind of violently. It catches the sun's rays, I believe, and reflects back. So that was actually what he saw. Was he was looking in the sky for drones, thinking nothing about UFOs, UAPs, or anything else, and saw flashing and said, "What is that?" Zoomed in and be like, "Oh wow, there's 7 of these craft in a tight formation maneuvering on us," right? And again, I told you I was on the roof with interns with good ears and good eyes, better than mine. And we're not seeing a thing. So to the human senses, there was nothing there. But these things flew probably 2,000 or 3,000 feet above us, and we had no idea they were there at all. Where a drone of the same size in the same flight formation would have been glaringly obvious. Excuse me. So it would have been so obvious that we couldn't have missed it.
So UAP by definition is, unidentified.
Yeah.
And it's even broader than UFO because it's aerial phenomena. When you see these sort of tetrahedron-like, things in formation as you're simulating war games, is your first instinct, oh, this is some state-of-the-art technology that's probably Russian or Chinese? Because there's a lot of reasons for them to want to see, the red team, blue team stuff that we're doing at home here in the U.S., right? Or is your first instinct, this is not from here?
I'm kind of all over the map, frankly. I get conflicting signals, if you will, from the data we're seeing. None of the rabbit holes, I call them, if you go down the, hey, it's made in America rabbit hole, doesn't make any sense. I've been on project and had special programs without telling us bring their secret things to our event. And so when we are exposed to that technology, which has happened several times, it's usually, hey, you signed an NDA, don't talk about it. Don't share it, delete that data. They're going to tell your interns that don't have a clearance, don't know anything. And we're just going to write it off and move on. Right. And nobody has done this for the UAPs. Right. And it should be noted that we go to events and have gone to events over the years where the government has been there already on another project. And we show up day one and they have UAPs all over their event and they have no idea. Because they're not looking for them. They don't know they're there. They're very hard to see. If you don't know how to spot them with your technology, you're not going to be able to even see them or acknowledge that they're in your airspace.
So it's either adversary or NHI, right?
I would take it a step further and say it's not either or necessarily. It could be both.
Interesting.
Right? And I would also offer that what we are seeing, my observations and my team's observations are that whoever or whatever is controlling these is probing our capabilities. So it's not like, if I see a Class 1, it doesn't just stay in a straight azimuth and fly north to south like it was already flying. No, it approximates us at the edge of our active telemetry systems, like a radar and jammers and other equipment that may or may not be present during whatever kind of event we're running. It will approximate on the edge of that effective bubble and then fly through the bubble of effect. So they're putting themselves in beam of our systems. And there's very few reasons why you do that from a defense perspective.
They're gathering information.
Probably. I mean, there's not a whole lot of reasons why you would put yourself, if I have the secret stealth technology, if I have an F-35, am I going to fly it to Russia and buzz Moscow and get in their radars and let them quantify what my F-35 looks like?
Right.
I'm not an Air Force guy, but I would imagine no. I'd imagine that would be dangerous. Not because they're getting shot down. That's obviously a problem, but also because now they know precisely how I look on their radar, which means they can weaponize that to detect me in the future.
Right.
Right.
As you know, I'm always on the hunt for things that help me stay sharp, focused, and full of energy while I'm diving into life's mysteries and making this show happen. And I've got to say, Mudwater has completely transformed my mornings. Back in the day, I used to struggle with that post-coffee crash. And let's not even get into the caffeine jitters. Mudwater gave me the smooth, steady energy I was missing. It's packed with functional mushrooms like lion's mane, chaga, and reishi, plus turmeric and cacao, all working together to keep me focused, calm, and grounded. Honestly, it's like coffee went on a yoga retreat and came back zen. What I love most is that it's not just about replacing coffee, it's a whole new ritual. It's a simple, nourishing way to start the day, and I actually look forward to it every morning. Every ingredient is USDA certified organic, vegan, non-GMO, and there's zero sugar. It's energy that doesn't mess with your sleep or make you question your life choices at 3 a.m. Ready to make the switch to cleaner energy? Head to mudwater.com, that's MUDWTR.com, and grab your starter kit today. Right now, our listeners get an exclusive deal up to 43% off your entire order, plus free shipping and a free rechargeable frother when you use code Jesse. That's right, up to 43% off with code Jesse at MUDWTR.com. After your purchase, they'll ask you how you found them. Please show your support and let them know we sent you. Keep your energy natural and refreshing all year long with Mudwater, because life's too short for anything less than clean, delicious energy.
So
It's like that whole thing, the Chinese spy balloon of, I think it was 2023, January 2023, where you had this balloon that was flying over the Aleutian Island chains in Alaska. And I think it was probably figuring out the limits of our radar detection, because that's where we had our ICBM detection method, state-of-the-art stuff. And so if you have this balloon, you can figure out, what's reflecting back, at what distance are we actually picking up, where they are. And that's really valuable, right? And then it ends up flying over, I think, Montana, where you obviously have Malmstrom and all these, other kind of Minutemen bases. So that's interesting. So when you say it's kind of a false dichotomy, adversary and NHI, does that mean the NHI could be adversary? Does that mean Russia, China are somehow partnered with the NHI? Like, your mind goes into all these different possible kind of, variations or permutations of that. Do you guys have kind of a base case there, or?
No, so there's too many variables really to understand. We have 5 years of data, terabytes of radar, imagery, video, photos, signals intelligence, if you will, RF we've collected, direction finding, all these different categories of data. And even with that kind of data and that kind of time, we don't have enough data yet to tell us the answer. And I would offer, the reason for that is we're not running scientific test events, right? There's a distinct differentiator there. Right now we're running an operation, right? An operation means I have just enough personnel to man the equipment to do the task, and then we're going to record what they collect while they're running that operation and doing that task, and then we're going to analyze it. A test event would be, I would have extra people with clipboards and whistles and scientists looking over our shoulders. I'd probably have double or triple the labor footprint, and they would have a series of test event criteria, objectives that were pre-coordinated, and they would come out and ensure that we capture all the data and it's all meticulously done. And then after the event, we write a report and do the thing. I would offer that we strive to arrive at a test event. And the reason why we strive is it's very expensive. I have to double or triple my costs now in labor to pay people to come out and run a test event, which is very hard to do as a commercial entity. The government does it all the time because the government has endless wealth, right? As a commercial entity, like, where does that money come from, right? Especially as a private enterprise who is not selling anything to the government right now or doesn't have a relationship. And then I would offer it's further compounded by, we have been contracted in the past by the government to collect UAP data. And those contracts had nothing to do with UAPs, right? We continued running war game events or other events for the government when all they really wanted was UAP data, right? So I say that because I don't foresee any future, at least in our current paradigm, where the government's going to say, hey, James, hey, Skywatcher, we want you to go collect UAP data at whatever location and give us that. That has not happened to my knowledge, and I know of nobody that's had a contract like that. Instead, it's, can you tell us what's on our airspace? Can you run a war game? So because of that mismatch in reality, in the inability of our bureaucracy and decision makers to directly affront the situation of UAPs, instead they have to be surreptitious about it and talk, kind of circular about it, that actually befuddles our ability to have a test event or TE, or test evaluation where we have a large body of people present.
Right. Yeah, it's frustrating. You have to kind of talk about it in a circular way, and you can't just kind of go to the heart of the matter, because It's not even acknowledged at the highest levels of our government still, which is
I'd say
crazy.
it's even deeper than that. There's really three categories of people when you talk about UAPs. You have one category which is religious. In the religious category, you'll often find people who are very intelligent, very smart, like normal people.
Yep.
But they tend on this topic to assign a religious filter to the lens they're looking at it through, right? And the challenge there is you're going to get somebody saying, well, you're talking to angels and demons, you're interfering with God, instead of, hey, what is the science behind what you're seeing, right? And so that lens can be detrimental to us being effective with that group. The other group is the group that thinks everything's man-made, made in China, made in Russia, made in the U.S., right? That group also has a lens, and they look at through a national security lens.
Yep.
And so they think, well, Skywatcher, you're revealing national secrets. You're sharing too much detail here, and subverting the national defense, right? And so again, they're closed-minded because they don't want to discover more because they feel like they're patriotic and nationalistic, but really they're anti-science almost.
Yeah.
And then the third category of people are people who are truly open-minded, who can put aside preconditions, pre-beliefs, or things maybe from their upbringing or personal beliefs and just study science and let the observations and observables tell them what it is.
Yeah.
And so you never know who you're going to get, which is why, like I said, we have to be circular in our true objectives when we speak with these officials, because they are not prepared to speak with us in truth.
Yeah. No, it's well said. It feels like it's kind of a Scylla and Charybdis, and the two failure modes are, on the one hand, maybe being too mired in past dogma, kind of religious fundamentalist dogma. And then on the other hand, it's like atheist, materialist reductionism, nothing, it's all nuts and bolts and there's nothing else or something. It's total closed-mindedness kind of in both directions or something. And an approach that is kind of open-minded and just data-driven, I think is great. Another question this begets, and then I want to get into the core data, because I think you guys have a lot of interesting stuff there, but is like, so if that's a spectrum, the like materialist and the, kind of religious thing, I think there's also a spectrum of they're all good and they're all bad. And to me, Occam's razor is it's probably just like humans, it's probably there's a mix of like there's good and there's bad or something. And so I don't know if you have a take there, but you have like Lou Elizondo, long time, OSAP, ATIP, modern day UFO whistleblower, who is for a while at least was more on kind of the threat narrative. And then you have Stephen Greer, who has known Jake for a while, and he's more on the like, I just interviewed him. He's like, they're all good. And I would say it's probably in between those two, like the answer can't be all good or all bad or something. So I don't know if you have a take there.
Yeah, for sure. So some of the UAP we've observed just maneuver through the airspace and depart, right? So that's really like hard to determine friend or foe, who is it, which is why for a long time, we were very secretive with this. We thought what we were seeing was red or blue, right? We assumed that it was man-made and it was a weapon system being utilized on us to see what we would observe or learn from it. That isn't necessarily the case in our minds anymore, but that's why we kept everything very secretive to protect national defense, right? Now that we've understood some new things, we've kind of come out, if you will, and are more open about what we're observing, which is why we're public now. So the class 1 just moves through. We don't see any adverse reactions or really many interactions with the class 1. It will dodge our lasers if we shine lasers at it, but that's as much interaction as we'll get from that class of UAP. There are other classes who have interacted with us in a negative manner. Some of them interact, I think, inadvertently negative with us, as in they're emanating, perhaps through their technology, they're emanating electromagnetic waves that are in energy that are interfering with our equipment. So it's more of an area effect. So I feel like it's probably not on purpose. And then there's another class that's actually hit us with a microwave weapon. So actually shut down our systems. Actually turned everything to the off position.
Wow.
Right? That's a very deliberate. Now, is that defensive or offensive?
Right.
Is it shutting us down to protect itself or shutting us down to understand how we'll react? Right?
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's like you get into all these philosophical questions of, are they prepping the battle space, or are they showing us that our ways are brutish and our war games need to stop or something, because we might, blow ourselves up. And it's just really, it kind of boils down to philosophy. And so I do think, gathering data is good, but it does bring up this interesting question, which is, from my limited experience with you, you seem like very practical and very data oriented, and just kind of the preeminent kind of practitioner, like where you want to find an answer. You don't want to get caught up in necessarily crazy kind of philosophical discussions. I've spoken with Jake a little bit before you, and it does feel like this kind of spiritual journey for him. I've spoken with Alex Clokus, who I know is working with you guys as well. It seems like kind of a spiritual thing for him. How do you reconcile that? Is it good to have kind of a mix as far as, the team? You want, some guys who are a little more philosophical, some guys who are kind of more execution oriented, or how do you view that? Because it does feel like a lot of people who get into the UFO subject and study it from the government perspective, like OSAP with, Skinwalker Ranch, they come in maybe oh, we're just going to figure some stuff out. And they come out, I don't want to say more religious, but more reverential, where they're I went and then I got a little spooked, honestly. I had a weird month after I went, and it kind of put the fear of God in me with this stuff. So yeah, I guess, how do you think about all of that?
So let me actually take a step back to our origin story.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not a whistleblower.
Yeah.
I never held a clearance in the government related to anything or was read onto anything with UAPs whatsoever. My government experience is frankly just made me the person I am, who can be open-minded and observe and report, collect, and understand, right? So that's kind of a unique position to be in. Unlike David Goresh or Jake Barber, others, Lou Elizondo, I have no whistleblower story at all.
Yep.
Everything we've done for Skywatcher is 100% commercial activity.
Yep.
That commercial activity might be in support of a government event, again, unrelated to UAPs, because the government has said, look, thanks for the observation. We have nothing on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Skywatcher truly is a technology company that was started because of UAP, right? So if you look at Anduril, you look at CACI, you look at Boeing, Lockheed, all these other bigs, they were started for national defense purposes, right? So they started with a preconceived notion of, I want to spot a stealth aircraft. I want to spot a MiG-31. I want to spot a supersonic missile. And they worked backwards to develop technology for that purpose. Skywatcher, conversely, has started with, we're looking at an unknown enemy weapon system or thing in the sky. We don't know what it is, and we don't have a good signature of what that looks like, and we want to detect that. So what we did is we consulted with industry experts, pioneers in their craft, academia, some savants, and said, here is a classified drone threat. Here's the parameters I need to measure. How do we design a system that will actually detect this drone threat and enable us to understand more about that threat? So for 3 years, we've been developing Skywatcher as a technology, right, that basically flips the paradigm on its head. Instead of saying, I want to track a MiG-31, we're saying, I want to know what that thing is in the sky that nobody knows is there, and I want to quantify it. So Skywatcher actually was my cover term for UAPs, right? I have briefed VCs, I have briefed high net worth individuals, I have briefed the government on Skywatcher as a technology without ever saying the word UAP. Because again, when we thought that the UAPs might be a national defense problem, we approached it from a veil of secrecy. And Skywatcher was how we would converse with people about technology development that's really slated for UAP detection and tracking. So we are a technology company rooted in unexplainable, unknown physics and trying to understand that from a defense perspective, right? So because of our scientific approach to this, we have a lot of data, and we don't have a lot of room for areas that don't have data, right? So what I mean by that is, as I said in the episodes, I'm not a believer. I don't want to have faith in this. I don't want to have to trust me, bro, and see, believe you when you tell me. No, show me the data, and then I'll know, and I'll have knowledge, and then I can understand.
You know how we're always diving into the edge of science and consciousness on this show? Lately, I've been thinking a lot about aging, not just in terms of years, but in how it actually feels in the body. Slow recovery, lower energy, that middle-aged fog that sneaks up on you. I feel like I can barely go out and drink alcohol anymore. That's why I started using something called Qualia Senolytic, and it's been a major shift for me. Let me explain. As we age, our bodies accumulate what scientists call senescent cells, also known as zombie cells. These are worn-out cells that stop dividing but don't die. They hang around in your body, draining your energy, clogging up your recovery, and generally making you feel older than you are. Qualia Senolytic is a first-of-its-kind supplement formulated with 9 plant-based compounds designed to help your body naturally eliminate these zombie cells. It's not something you take every day, just 2 days a month, but it supports your body in aging better at the cellular level. Since I've started taking it, I've felt sharper, lighter, and like my body's resilience has come back online. It's vegan, non-GMO, and grounded in serious research. Experience the science of feeling younger. Go to qualialife.com/Jesse for up to 50% off your purchase and use code Jesse. Again, that's JESSE for an additional 15% off. That's QUALIALIFE.com/Jesse, JESSE, for an extra 15% off your purchase. Thanks so much to Qualia for sponsoring this episode.
So on the UAP side, in terms of craft in the sky, I think we have that, right? And I say that the episodes we've produced, why did we do that? Alex and I had a conversation about this, and I was very insistent, as was he, like, we have 4.5 years of data.
Yeah.
Right? It sits on a drive in a certain place. And
that's also important for the audience to understand that you've been at this for a while. The public reveal was more recent, but you've been at this for almost 5 years now?
5 years, yeah. The analysis of that data is onerous. It's hard to do. It's expensive. And Gary Nolan talked about that today at the hackathon, about how hard data is. Even his data that he has, it's very hard and expensive. There's a real monetary cost to conducting the analysis and doing it scientifically. So the data is great to have, but analyzing the data is very hard. So instead, as an interim, we've decided to video and document the activities as they unfold. And so at great cost to our own business and expense, if you will, in time and energy and effort, we have documented these things so that when the data is released scientifically, they have a backstory to understand how the data was collected. Because again, the scientific report, a white paper, a scientific journal saying a thing is just a snapshot.
Yeah.
And most people have no clue what that means in terms of general public. But if they can reference a video that covers that place and time of that event unfolding where that data was collected, now it tells a whole story.
Yeah.
Now you have the anecdotal, you have the literal live, imperfect experience as things unfold, and then you have the post, very scientific data analysis that actually covers down exactly, explicitly, the analysis of how that event unfolded.
Yep. And I want to get into the data. Final question before we dive into the taxonomy and all the classes, which I'm really excited about, is Jake Barber. How did you partner up with Jake, and how'd you meet him?
So I was very cautious for a long time of who I would meet with or talk with. I actually met with Gary one time and did it in a way that, frankly, made him very uncomfortable. Okay. Because who's this guy meeting me?
Yeah.
Like he was a little freaked out because I was very secretive in very spy versus spy type of meetings.
Okay.
With Gary, and then I also ran into some congressional staff members, did the same thing of like, I don't want to be on your calendar, but I want to like your congressperson saying publicly that they want this. Well, I have it. Let's talk. But again, we kept everything in the IC and very secretive. So first I met Gary, and then I met Alex, and then after we met, Jake and I met when we started forming the company Skywatcher as a private entity.
Cool. All right, let's get into the data. So you guys just released a video that's just fascinating, where you have 9 classes of UAP that you described. Can we go through them class by class? Are you cool with that?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
And I don't know if you remember all of them off the top. I have a picture on my phone if you know all. Okay, I love it. Awesome. Man who knows his craft. Okay, so no pun intended. So let's go with class 1.
class 1 is the Tetra. The Tetra does have different characteristics than just multi-band imagery. So electro-optical, which means daylight camera, usually with a little bit more bandwidth, if you will, so you can see a little bit more than the human eye can see in the visible spectrum. Then we have middle wave infrared and shortwave infrared. All three of those sensors see the class 1s. It registers on all of them. And then also we have radar that we see the class 1 on.
Any typical behavior that the class 1s engage with? You mentioned they were in a formation before. Any other interesting data that you have on them?
Yeah, so the class 1 tend to fly in groups. We've seen 1 or 2 as a singleton, but usually they're in groups of 3 to 20. And that group tends to fly through in some kind of formation. And it can be everything from 4 or 5 craft seemingly locked together, maneuvering as a group with another group, and even a third, all the way from that to looking like a V formation, like a stealth bomber would look, or a flock of birds, but clearly doing UAP things that don't happen in nature. So we've seen them fly through in those formations right over us, right? So like most UAPs, they'll deviate their flight path that we first see them on, then they'll come into beam of our telemetry systems and we'll see them on a map and we'll know exactly the altitude, ground speed, radar cross section. We'll have all that data on that craft at that time or that group of craft. And then we'll follow their flight path as they fly right over us or right next to us or whatever maneuver they're doing. So we'll see the class 1s fly right over us. Like I said, usually in a formation of some kind.
Okay, class 2, what are we looking at?
Class 2 is the Tic-Tac. So it's about 40 feet in length. We saw that first in 22 and then in 23, and then we didn't see them again until 25, till February this year. We've seen them in groups of 1 to 3. They don't appear to fly in formation as much as arrive together in a group and then depart as singletons. So really hard to say. We don't know that we have them on radar yet. We have a lot of radar data. And for example, in our February event, we had a class 2 which exhibited some very strange behavior, which you'd never seen. It actually used the hills to hide from us and came in, hide from our primary sensors. So we were watching jellyfish fly through the sky and started having interference with our systems, we believe from the jellyfish. And then we had some weird radar blips to the north of us. And so we started looking to the north, and then we saw several UAP, one of which was a Tic-Tac. So the Tic-Tac, we have laser range finder returns on it, and we have it in multiple spectrums of imagery, but we don't have any SIGINT from it, and we don't have any radar that we know of from it.
Do you guys have infrared?
Yes.
And you have infrared of the Tic-Tac? Because, I think of Nimitz, 2004, and I think that the best imagery for that was thermal, forward-looking infrared, 2004 case with David Fravor and, USS Princeton, so.
So what's interesting is the government, if they have never released the electro-optical view of the Tic-Tac. I don't know their motivation, whether they have that footage or they have chosen not to release it.
They say they do.
but I'll say in our footage of the Tic-Tacs, they are not a round cylinder only, right? They're actually more like a porcupine.
Okay.
So if you look at, if you zoom in and enhance the footage, you can actually see little spikes all around the craft, around the perimeter of it.
Interesting.
Kind of riding the surface of it. Furthermore, I talked about in the other video, the episode, that they appear to bend when they come out of high G maneuvers. Whoa. So they're flexible or semi-rigid, if you will.
I think do you guys have video? Maybe that's the Manta, I don't remember, but it feels like the thing is bending in the video. Is that the Tic-Tac?
You can see it, and ProPixel did a good job of zooming in, enhancing, and showing that.
Okay, so a little AI enhancement. Yeah.
Which we didn't do ourselves on purpose.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. We wanted to give our government the chance to say, stop sharing this data. It was sensitive. So we did a very controlled, limited release with footage that wasn't the most spectacular. to give the government that opportunity to ask us to rescind or stop.
Have you gotten any calls to stop what you're doing, or?
No, quite the opposite. I've sat in meetings with various agencies of the government very recently.
Yeah.
We do routinely share a lot with the government, and I've asked the government to nebulize me, to give me an NDA, to tell us to stop, make us, give us some kind of indication, or even lately, hey, give us some talking points. Like, what helps national defense on this? And I'll tell you, the government's refused. So,
it's
what does that mean?
I, in a much probably smaller, more mini way than you've experienced, feel the same way. I feel like the lights are on, but no one's home often on the government with this stuff. Where on the one hand, you have David Grush's claims and others, and honestly, a lot of historical evidence that we have real reverse engineering programs. We have saucers and hangars. Like, we know a lot about this stuff. And then on the other side of the spectrum, it's like you continuously meet these people where you're like, oh, that person should be like one of the architects of this thing, or, whatever. You get into these rooms and like it often feels extremely frustrating where it's like no one knows what's going on. And if there's anything, we were talking about this earlier, like, China has its own centralized way. Even if you read the 3-body problem, it's like they'll just knock on the scientist's door and say, you're coming with us, right? And in the US, you have these kind of private side, people innovating on, anything happening. And it's always this kind of distributed, loose thing. It's not this fully top-down centralized system. So it's just so hard to make sense of how much the government actually knows on this. So is your sense that they don't know, or they're playing dumb, or what?
So I think it's kind of a mix.
Okay.
Right. So when I meet with the government and ask them, usually the conversation will go something like, James, nice to meet you. Let's talk about the data you have. Let's talk about what you're seeing. I'll lay out all 9 classes, kind of give them like probably 30 minutes to an hour long overview. And then they'll say, great, since we're in a skiff, I'm going to make a call to this other program, has all this knowledge and data on stuff, and I'm going to ask them if anything you have matches what they're doing. And the answer is always no. The answer is always they have no clue what you're talking about. There's nothing in inventory that matches what you're describing. So yeah, we don't know, right? And then usually what happens after that is a deer in the headlights look. I held a meeting recently where there was a guy on the VTC in a classified settings kind of smirking, right? I thought he was incredulous or thinking negatively about what I was saying. Turns out he was smirking because he already has done his due diligence and says, like, we have no knowledge of any of this, right? As in, like, I think he may have even said maybe this is off planet, right? Which is quite shocking when I'm in a room with subject matter experts from the government on UAP and UAP tracking and history, and the answer they give me is maybe it's off planet. And he says in a smirking manner because, like I said, there's different categories of people, and even in a room of people who are studying or trying to learn about this, there's still that edge where there's a little bit of taboo for him to say that I think it's off planet.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I would also offer that typically engineers and scientists are bad liars. Usually they're not really good at keeping a straight face and talking around a topic. And I've purposefully affronted several of them or confronted them with some of our findings to see and measure and kind of put them in the hot seat to see if they have a reaction. And the reaction I get from them is typically very honest that they have no idea what this is. And these are people that should know about it. So do I think that there is misdirection and information operations warfare type stuff happening? I do believe there is that happening. Do I think that our government has some reverse engineering or technology? Yes, I think that is the case. But I don't think that is necessarily tied to what we're observing in the sky.
It's like the deeper you go on this, you really have to, what I think a lot of people expect in this subject is for everything to tie together so neatly and perfectly. And for you to have, it's like the things you're seeing in the sky are the things that we have on the ground, are the secret science things, is the consciousness stuff that we all kind of intuit might involve, it might be the next kind of scientific paradigm. And it all fits together in this neat thing. And then also space aliens, and they're from Zeta Reticuli, and you're like, oh, it's easy. And in fact, all of those things could be their own disparate threads. And it's just this extremely wonky, hard thing to figure out. And the deeper you go, in some ways, the more confused you get, which is cool. I mean, that's like any cool subject that's generative, but it's not often the disclosure I think people want. You know, they want this like neatly packaged, you know, tied up in a bow thing. And I don't know if that's ever coming.
Let's talk about a guilt-free alternative to alcohol that's perfect for your dry January or any time you want to unwind. Cornbread's organic CBD gummies. These gummies are an absolute lifesaver for my evening routine. They're a natural way to relax, celebrate, or wind down without the hangover. I've cut back a lot on my alcohol consumption over the last few years. For a lot of you trying out dry January or cutting back generally, it's not always easy, but swapping that glass of wine for Cornbread's CBD gummies is a total game changer. It's a simple upgrade to your evening routine that leaves you feeling great the next day without sacrificing the fun. Plus, with all natural ingredients, they're the perfect way to stay balanced. Cornbread hemp isn't just a product, it's a small way to bring balance into your life. Whether you're journaling, meditating, or simply enjoying some downtime, these gummies elevate the experience without any of the guilt. It's like having a moment of calm in your pocket, ready whenever you need it. Alcohol doesn't have to be the default anymore. Whether you're cutting back for dry January or just looking for a healthier way to relax, you've got to try Cornbread CBD gummies. Right now, American Alchemy listeners can save 30% on their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/Jesse and use code Jesse at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/Jesse, code Jesse. Cornbread Hemp. This is the good life.
Yeah, and I don't think that disclosure is what the common populace thinks it is. So when we talk about disclosure, we release the disclosure framework because it's our belief that, and our understanding and our desire that when we release data in scientific studies, nobody should have to ask what that means, right? When a third party looks at our data and reaches conclusions, nobody should have to say, "What does that mean? That there's aliens? Does that mean that the government knows what's going on?" Like, there should be some kind of framework that covers what that means, and that can be clearly articulated of this report and this data means this. So that's why we laid out the disclosure framework. But I would add a twist on that, and that it's my opinion that disclosure isn't about aliens, it's not about UFOs, UAPs. It's my opinion, Eric Weinstein, I believe, has said that there's secret physics.
Colleague.
Yeah, secret physics or secret science, and I believe that that is the case.
You know that there's physics knowledge held by aerospace companies that is not
There
known.
certainly is materials knowledge,
Materials, well, okay, material
which
science.
involves topological physics or whatever.
I think the government's conflicted right now, our government, and probably several others. I think they have advanced secret physics and knowledge and science
I agree with you.
that they have had probably since at least the end of World War II. And through that science and understanding have developed new technologies. And I think that disclosure from a government perspective is about the science being released and disclosed, not about the technology. So
Yeah.
So let me make it really simple. Let's say you're a Lockheed program manager who has a secret program with the government, and your secret program involves physics that are like nothing we have today that anybody knows about. And you're doing really crazy things for national defense against our enemies and to defend our homeland with this knowledge. And you're developing new sensors, you're developing new aircraft, you're developing new submarines, whatever it is you're developing, you're doing it with a physics that nobody understands. Now let's say you've been doing that for 20 years, you're at a good place in your career, you make a lot of money, you're happy, you're stable, but now the news and the public zeitgeist starts changing, and now there's agents of the government hunting for you because they think you're responsible for this UFO phenomena, UAP phenomena. They think that you somehow are using your advanced physics to do information operations warfare against the American populace. So they're actively hunting for you. So now you just went from a patriot who loves his family, loves his country, and is very smart in developing technology or protecting technology and science, to the boogeyman that has somebody hunting for them. And so that Lockheed engineer needs a pressure relief valve, right? So I think we have reached the point where our government has decided that it needs to release knowledge about the advanced physics and advanced science, but at the same time needs to constrain that Lockheed engineer or scientist from revealing our national secrets and protecting our national defense. So I think our government's conflicted in that without saying it out loud, because by saying it, they're acknowledging that it's true. And no one has told me this. I've arrived at this position through years of discussions. No one has ever said like, hey, here's the case. I know nothing from the government. In fact, all I ever get from them is deer in the headlights and questions and answers.
Yeah. So much of this resonates with my own experience looking into this stuff.
So I think disclosure, frankly, is less about a UAP flying in the air and more about releasing the science. And how do you release the science? How does Skywatcher release the science? I'll tell you, we're a private company, privately funded. We have our own technology. We're developing our own technology. And as I stated in the beginning, we are rooted in and exist because of UAPs being exposed to us. Is that the government program? Is the government program to expose U.S., Chinese, Russian, whatever technology to the layman, right, with the right mindset, so that they can produce science based on it to basically do disclosure of how they're doing it?
That's so interesting.
Yeah, knowing that. Hey, as we observe propulsion technology or telemetry technology or whatever we're observing, that even if we understand how they're doing it, we're still 60 to 90 years behind them, right? That
is mindfuck, excuse my French, but like the idea that that's their soft disclosure of secret science is us through, civilian efforts like what you're doing, private efforts, detecting what they're doing and then working back from first principles on how to build it, and maybe even building things that are emergently adjacent or new compared to what they've done over the last 60 or 70 years, which they can't admit to or own up to. That is fascinating. That's very interesting.
And that's what I believe is happening. I believe that's our role. I believe that's why when I was with the government, they give me no answers.
Sure.
They just want to see, hey, what are these guys going to come up with when they poke us, the bear, or whoever it is. And like I said, there's different categories. I think there's blue, I think there's red, and I think there's other. And I have an idea of which class is which, but I don't want to share that.
Sure.
But I believe that there is a mixed bag of what we're seing.
Why do you feel like it's premature to share that, or why?
I want the government to have the chance to stop me before I reveal secrets. Right? So that's frankly why we're holding back. It's not because we don't have the data or the knowledge. It's because we want to do this responsibly.
Sure.
Right? So again, disclosure is going to be more about, we're making observations right now. We made observations in March and in February that revealed to us the technology in play. And what that means is I sat with a physicist from a certain field looking over my shoulder while I went frame by frame on one of the UAP classes that we have not revealed yet. And that physicist was able to say, wow, that's the technology being used. That is how their propulsion works.
Whoa.
This is what the shape of the craft means. Right? So no longer are we, it's magic. Okay, I can't replicate that technology. I don't understand how they're doing that in that kind of form factor, in that size and scale. But no longer do I have to say, I don't know how they're cloaking. No longer do I have to say, I don't know how they're propulsing. Right? Now we can understand, okay, this is why we can't see them sometimes, because perhaps they're using what we have observed. Right? So those observations tell us something. But it doesn't give me the science and the tools to go make it and do it myself.
Sure.
So that is one of the things we were doing at Skywatcher.
That's still fascinating, though. I mean, can you say anything about what that scientist said about that specific?
No, I have to leave that. Let that go for a while. But it's important to understand that part of Skywatcher is an applied physics, applied science, if you will, where you're working to understand the technology behind what we're seeing. And really, I actually said that wrong. We're actually working to understand the science behind what we're seeing so we can understand the technology. And again, let's say that is a made in America thing, and that, some agency flew that through specifically because of what we're reporting, we're seeing, so that we can release maybe to the world eventually the science behind it, so that innovation can be made to move us forward as safely as we can and responsibly as we can. Like, is that the quest here? To pressure relief that project manager at Lockheed, the mythical project manager at Lockheed that I don't know exists, to pressure relief them and turn them from the boogeyman into, they can keep all their technology secrets, all their advancements, while we understand the science. And like I said, we're 60 years behind.
Totally. Well, something else I hope happens is I've talked to a couple of those aerospace graybeard types, and you never know, what they've discovered, but you can sense that some of them, are higher conviction on certain frameworks that aren't publicly acknowledged. And what I sense sometimes is that there's a feeling of, wow, like I feel high conviction in some of these things. I wish they were used more broadly in civil side architecture, and maybe we had this kind of regressive Cold War mindset, which doesn't even make sense now with some of these frameworks. Because if China and Russia are not at parity, I will say publicly, and I'm sure fans will get pissed at me, that like we shouldn't disclose something that is, extremely dual use and like could confer some really big warfare tactical advantage, obviously. But if they are at parity, and if there are ways to implement some of this stuff civil side, and we don't have to send civil side science off into this kind of cul-de-sac of like not being productive because of bad frameworks, it would be great to get some of this stuff out. And I also see those graybeards at times being like, I wish I could work more for humanity too. So I don't know if you've experienced that or...
So yes, that is, we do have a certain level of, look, we'd like to help humanity, help our country. We're very patriotic, and we're very open about what we're trying to do, which is develop technology for national defense, and also at the same time, if through the science we can discover new technology, like we're all about proliferating that. Like that's responsibly. That's what we want to do. I think our government is constrained, right? The skies are not classified, and we are seeing things in the skies. Those things seem to be there all the time. There's a very specific time of day when we observe UAPs. They're not there the other times of day.
Can you say what time? Or?
I'll skip that for now.
Yeah.
But the point there is we can be on the ground looking up at the UAPs with a camera ball and see them. We see them on radar, right? So we have 3 spectrums that we're seeing them on with imagery, and we see them on radar. So that's 4 different methods that we're tracking them with. Then we get in a helicopter and go chase them. I've chased probably about 15 UAPs now in the last 60 days.
I wanted to ask you about this.
Yeah. So when we chase them, we have never seen a UAP from the air.
Wow.
Right? Now, air-to-air intercepts are hard to do. I was not a PJ or F-16 pilot or anything Air Force, so Army. Right? So I have zero experience
playing catch up.
I did a lot of skydiving and military free fall operations, but I've never been in an aircraft with a motor trying to chase another aircraft.
We have Jake on your team.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Yeah, he's a really good pilot, too, right?
Yeah.
So we've chased about 15 UAPs, and they evade us, right? But they evade us because the ground can see them evading. From the air, we've never laid eyes on them. Right, we're sitting there with binoculars, sitting there with S-rear cameras. We're sitting there.
Why do you think that is?
I think that they have a method to be cloaked from the air, and that method does not extend to the ground. Right, and it's important to understand. Okay, so we're seeing UAPs.
How would you even do that? It's so wild.
It is wild, right? We're seeing UAPs in commercial airspace, right? At the same flight levels that commercial aviation is flying at, that you cannot see from the air. So understand, if we're in El Paso working, and we see a UAP, and I'm looking north, and in El Paso, if you look north, actually from where we're at in Sierra Blanca, the last place we were using, when we look north, all we see are airliners transiting because everyone transits the border right there by El Paso, just north. So in the same airspace, we're seeing UAPs, all right? So UAPs that the pilots cannot see. Wow. And I know they can't see them because I've been probably about 200 meters from a Class 8, and the team's like, look out your left window, the UAP is right there, and me and the pilot and one of my colleagues is sitting there looking, scanning every sector.
And you can't see it.
There's nothing there.
Whoa. Do you think, are you picking it up from the ground with normal optical sensors, with cameras, or with kind of more exotic stuff, or what are you picking it up?
So it's the ones I described.
Okay.
The radar and the 3 bands.
We should go through it. Yeah. So you have radar, you have infrared.
So we have shortwave infrared, medium wave infrared, and electro-optical. Electro-optical can see a little bit more than the human eye.
Gotcha.
And I believe that The reason why the electro-optical can see them and we cannot is because that little bit of extra is where they're actually emitting light. And in
Interesting.
they're not.
Where is, so the human eye, I think, is 400 and 700 nanometers is the range. So where would this be on the
I don't know.
the electro-optical would be like?
We haven't figured that out yet. Like we haven't figured out where in the spectrum they're visible. Like I said, we're running an operation. And we're growing to the science.
Okay.
So, and I would even offer to jump ahead a little bit in the class 7s.
Yep.
For
But
40,
it'd probably be like 350 to 750. It's probably within the, you know.
it's probably somewhere like that. But the class 7s for years, we thought were black-bodied objects that emitted a purple and pink vapor of some kind or reflection with white tentacles, as jellyfish.
Yep.
Right? Recently, in February, we saw class 7s with the naked eye. I saw one with the naked eye. It looked like a golden chrome-looking mirror that was highly reflective with white tentacles. Then we picked up binoculars and got high magnification scopes on them, and they looked bright white, but reflective. So under each observation method, we get a different return on what we're seeing. It's not consistent, right? So it's not a black body, I don't think. I think it's white, like the Tic-Tac and like the egg and like other things that are out there. But that tells you the hard problem we have here. We're trying to detect a craft that isn't consistent across bands, right? And it's very hard to image at the same distances we are seeing these. If we see a drone, which again, we started this with drones, or a bird, we see lots of birds, or balloons, we've released balloons too, or aircraft. At the same distances, we'd be able to distinguish flight control surfaces, engines, exhaust. And we're not picking that up with the UAPs. Right? So we have a team sitting outside of the TOC when we're running these operations with scopes and cameras, and they might catch a snippet for like 2 seconds of a UAP, but that's really all they're able to see. Unless, because UAPs typically are 5 kilometers minimum away, sometimes, approximately 10,000 feet above ground level, right? Whatever that is in meters. So they're not nearby, right? And often when we do see them, or when we did see them with the naked eye, in the few times we have, they're very reflective. So actually using the sun's glint to spot them is one of the methods we use, and should help us indicate that maybe we can't see them with the naked eye. Maybe all the naked eye sees are reflections.
Oh, that's so fascinating. So interesting. Makes me think of this Carl Sagan thing where he's talking about like, you're seeing a shadow of the thing. You're not seeing the thing itself. He's saying, I think it's like a Platonic solid. He's using like a tesseract example. And, that's just, and they're like, this comes up and it's very theoretical, but like holographic theories or principles. Grush even mentioned it in his congressional testimony.
The framework that I'm familiar with, for example, is something called the holographic principle. It derives itself from general relativity and quantum mechanics, and that is, if you want to imagine a 3D object such as yourself casting a shadow onto a 2D surface, that's the holographic principle. So you can be projected, quasi-projected from higher dimensional space to lower dimensional. It's a scientific trope that you can actually cross, literally, as far as I understand, but there's probably guys with PhDs that we could probably argue about that.
Class 3, what are we looking at?
Class 3 is the blob. So it's I describe it as a Pepto-Bismol colored cloud. And in the center of the cloud is like a filament that looks golden, almost like a flame. Looks like it's a cylinder. Maybe it has corners, really hard to tell. And this object, like the class 1 and the class 2, does fly in a stable trajectory. But while it's flying in that trajectory, it's vibrating vertically and horizontally very fast. So it moves from point to point instantaneously as it moves along a stable trajectory. And when I say stable trajectory, maybe its flight path is 80 knots, right? But on imagery and on radar, it is bouncing all over in a perhaps like a tube almost like it's in the subway, and you took like the Tasmanian devil and threw him in the subway and said, go downtown. And he's going to bounce all over the subway while he moves down that tubular tunnel there. That's kind of what we're seeing in the sky.
Interesting.
Right? So as the Tasmanian devil bounces all over the tunnel, he's still moving at a certain speed, but point to point, he's all over the map. Right? but within a constrained area.
It's fascinating.
So the class 3, we've never seen one up close.
Yeah.
We don't know why it vibrates and how it's vibrating, but for sure it is vibrating because we have it on imagery and on radar showing it vibrating. That does meet the threshold of several of the 5 characteristics or maybe 6 characteristics of UAPs, in that it's instantaneous movement from point to point. That, again, there's no contrail, there's no visible propulsion, it's just moving, you know. And we've had to ask ourselves, and it's still a theory, is everything in the sky, you know, a holographic projection? Is this all just the government or a government messing with our heads, making us think we're seeing something, and all it is plasmoids from space-based lasers, making shapes, and they're bouncing them across the sky to throw us off or make us think a thing. I accept that could be a possibility, right? Because what we're looking at with the class 3 defies any known physics, any known logic of how it's maneuvering. So is it really there? Is it, like I said, a plasmoid with lasers, or is there actually a physical craft there moving across the sky?
They'd have to be, if the government were doing that, they'd have to know where you guys are and then like be trying to spoof you or something, which I guess is possible, but you know, I don't know. That's fascinating. Do any of these classes, are they attributed more to the psionic assets calling them in versus the machine-based? Like, is it like the case, I'm just an example, the jellyfish only shows up with the machine-based thing, or the psionic asset only attracts, you know, this particular class? Is that, can you do those sort of attributions? Do you have data against that?
So we have 4.5 years of data with no psionics involved at all.
Wow.
Right. So
okay. So that was all machine-based.
Yeah. When we were running these government events, nobody there was doing anything psionic, and if they did, they wouldn't have the clearance, and they couldn't be there anyway, right? Like the government probably wouldn't allow them to be present, and I probably wouldn't have hired them onto my team to come help run the event if they were doing those things. So no, 4.5 years has no psionics whatsoever. We have 8 classes with that. That said, once we started doing this in a very open mindset of, well, I'm not a believer, I'm completely open. Like I've described several obscure theories that could hold true, whether it's a holographic projection, whether it's off planet, on planet, all these different theories. We have to, like, I don't have to believe all of them, but I have to accept that they could be true. We have to be completely open-minded here. To include on the psionic side. And what I would offer is, on the psionic side, I have had personal observations of things that the psionic team has done that appear to validate that their methods work. One example is in August, one of our principal psionic assets, Jordan, apparently called in a craft, and it could be an egg, I don't know what it is, and he's wearing a covering on his face. He's under a patio. He can't even see the sky. I'm looking down, looking at him, and he's having these experiences. And then Fred Baker was out on the back patio watching the sky while he hears Jordan freaking out down there on the beneath the porch down there. And Fred independently is like, oh, there it is, because Jordan said where to look in the sky, and Fred looked and saw an object.
Whoa. And
videoed it. We didn't have all of our equipment yet. It's very expensive to procure. So we had rudimentary equipment at that event. And we caught rudimentary observations, right? So, but Jordan called it out, literally said, this is where it's at in the sky. This is what's happening. Here it is. And there's some other things to go with that. But point being, okay, how do you reconcile that? How do you reconcile the entire event? Right? Fast forward to February. Well, we ran an event in January with the equipment, with no dog whistle. And we got 0 results. Right? So we have run events 24 hours a day. We've run events without the dog whistle, but the same technology and play, and we don't get UAPs during those times. It's only a very narrow part of the day. So in February, up till February, I'd never seen a UAP with a naked eye, ever.
Wow.
In 5 years of doing it, it was always through a sensor. In February, we actually had, for the first time, the dog whistle paired with psionic assets. And while we can't say definitively that the psionic assets were responsible for the results we got, for the first time, they approximated close enough to see them. They'd never done that before. Now, there's too many variables, right? We have to repeat this ad nauseum until we can say with some kind of scientific rigor that cause and effect or
Correlation,
psionics equal.
causation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also introduced more chaos. For 4.5 years, we had no helicopter. I had no Jake Barber. I had nobody to fly me up and go look. And part of our frustration with the government was we were underfunded when we were funded by the government for these events. And even when we were funded explicitly by certain parties to go look at UAPs, we were still underfunded there. So we didn't have the capacity to go get a helicopter or find Jake and go fly up to them. And because we're not Skinwalker Ranch, we are mobile, we are nomadic. And our end state is that we would like to make contact with or retrieve some of this material, right? So you're not going to do that by standing on the ground watching it and being static, right? So we want to fly to them and observe them. So we introduced the helicopter activity, and that introduced more chaos into the event, right? So it's just too many variables to understand cause and effect with that many variables being changed, right? So,
and one time when you were up in a helicopter, the helicopter was sort of frozen, like it couldn't continue on. Is that right?
We sent the helo out to intercept the Tic-Tac, but the first attempt failed because our radar was being jammed by the Class 7 jellyfish.
Where were we in the sky the first time you saw that? That was when we were 7 kilometers or so out to the northwest, 340 at that spot that we went to.
And we kept trying to climb, and it wouldn't let us.
Our helicopter launched, and about a half mile out, the helicopter stopped moving. Engines running, blades are turning, but it would not go forward, it would not go up, it would not go left or right, it was stuck there.
So we've had several interactions with UAPs in the air. First, the most prominent UAP we see are the jellyfish, the Class 7. When we chase them, they evade us. We have on video us flying towards the Class 7 and it changing its flight path, going into the wind, going perpendicular to the wind, and then elevating away from us. We're moving at 80 plus knots in a little bird, and watching the Class 7s with video and with radar, we know its airspeed, and maybe it's 30 or 40 knots. We should be able to air-to-air intercept that all day long, but they consistently outrun us and escape us. So we've had that interaction. Then yes, with the Tic-Tac, and I'll talk through kind of what happened with the Tic-Tac, because it's actually very interesting. We had observed the Class 7s fly through our radar beam and approximate our team repeatedly over 4 or 5 days. I believe it was 4 days. On the 4th day, the Class 7, it was actually very interesting. We had nobody up on the hill outside of the TIC. It was a barren hilltop. The helicopter wasn't there. On the 4th day, the Class 7 came and hovered over us for about 5 minutes. All right. Now, that's never happened before, and it hovered at about 800 meters over us, so we could see it with the naked eye for the first time. As soon as we started coming outside the TIC to look at it and grabbing other cameras to try and image it, it started moving away. All right. Now, understand, the Class 7 has some kind of apparently inherent microwave energy that it's emitting, right? And that energy interferes with our cabling between our systems, we believe. So we've noticed an effect that when the Class 7 is present, we lose connection to our sensors, the high-end sensors that we're removing it into. So our primary sensor didn't collect on that Class 7 while it was in hover or over us. Once it departed the area, our sensors turned back on, and we were able to actually image it. And I would offer, we've never had that happen before, ever. We never had one approximate, and we never had our sensors go down. So we have hundreds of thousands of dollars of camera gear inside the TIC, right? And so here's the team scrambling, our primary sensor just quit working, and now we're like, all right, let's grab the cameras and go image it. So everyone's in a hurry trying to do that, and poor Rory is out there just shooting all these videos and is taking photos, like, oh, this is amazing, and talking through it. And then we look at the camera and there's no SD card in it. And we realized, because they were our secondary systems, like we'd never seen one with these cameras, right? They were there for emergency use and we hadn't prepped them, right? Sometimes through those errors, they're costly, but you learn, right? Now we are prepared for our secondary systems to become primary in case they approximate again. But we had to learn that the hard way, right? So we've seen the Class 7s fly through our airspace routinely and probe apparently our active systems, our emanating systems. And so each day it seemed to get more, I would say aggressive, but I don't know that it's aggressive. It just got more interesting. And so maybe the first day it flies over top of what our radar bubble should be. Then maybe the next day it flies over top, maybe a little bit lower, and then deviates. Maybe it's coming from the west and it heads north, and then later in the day it comes in from the west and heads south, as in it's measuring our radar beam, our radar field. So that's the impression we got. And then for the first time in February, we saw 2 jellyfish fly together in the radar, and they offset from us equally. So 6 kilometers north and south of us, and they flew right past us, right?
Whoa.
So we're like, well, that's pretty cool. I've never seen them in pairs before.
Yep.
And they're obviously interested in us in the middle, and they're putting themselves in beam of our systems. So then
do they resemble the jellyfish that Jeremy Corbell revealed a couple years ago?
No, not
different.
Not to us. That looks like a shriveled up version of what we have, right? I would say, our jellyfish are about 2 to 3 meters across in the head.
Yeah.
I think they look like an aspirin pill.
Yeah.
I don't know. And the tentacles are about 5 meters long.
And I think the tentacles in your case, if I'm visualizing it correctly, are a little more dynamically moving than if you look at the Jeremy Corbell thing, I think it's thermal imaging, and they look like kind of stuck together, and like they're not they're not moving, the tentacles.
Yeah. Well, so the tentacles seem to flow a little bit more, and that's actually gets into I hate the word debunker or debunking, because it starts with the premise of we're going to prove you're a liar or prove you are incorrect. Instead of I'm going to consume what you're saying, I'm going to make a fair and unbiased estimation of the validity of that information and then release those results. So debunking to me is a adversarial relationship, and I think that there are paid debunkers out there who are too quick to come in and body slam and present falsehoods because they don't know the whole story, and they're assuming they do. And they're assuming some kind of malintent on our side of, hey, these guys must be liars. These guys are some kind of secret government program. None of it makes any sense at the end of the day. But the jellyfish, what's very interesting is if you take a balloon and release it into the wind and watch it, which we have done, the string will dangle below the balloon. And why is that? Because the balloon relative to the wind is blowing in the wind. You might get some oscillation of some turbulence or some different winds at different levels as it transitions through those winds. But for the most part, you're going to look at a balloon and you're going to see basically like a lollipop, right? A straight line coming down from the strings. If you take a helicopter and you conduct operations like Jake does with a long line, and you put that long line under weight and you lift it up and start flying 60, 80, 100 knots, right? The long line with load, it's going to be maybe a 45-degree angle off the bottom of the helicopter. It's going to be straight because it's under load, but it's blowing back from the relative wind, pushing it back. If you take that same helicopter and release the payload from it, but keep the long line and then fly into the wind, something very interesting happens. The long line actually forms a U shape, and the U is in the direction of travel. And that's because of the air pressure on that long line builds up in the middle of it. The surface area becomes under enough pressure that it actually bends the line in the direction of flight, so that as you're flying into the wind, it's like a U or a C flying, like a Pac-Man flying into the wind, right? What's interesting about the Class 7s is we've released images of them with the tentacles sometimes being straight, and then the same craft, when we know it's flying perpendicular to the wind in a swimming motion, the long line, the tentacles are actually in a Pac-Man, shape, indicating that it is flying into the wind, or it's flying faster than the wind. It is not floating with the wind. So as these debunkers try to come out with their theories, sometimes it's sad that they haven't done their basic analysis and research, and they're calling things balloons that, maybe one day we'll find out it's a balloon, but it's not your run-of-the-mill Mylar bought at Walmart. If it is a balloon, it's a hybrid balloon that can lift, apparently, and maneuver against and perpendicular to the wind at will, and ascend and descend. So these are properties that normally balloons can't do. So am I saying it's not a balloon? No. But if it is a balloon, it has to be a hybrid. At least with our current understanding of physics. And there's something special about it.
Some secret physics balloon at least.
Yeah, minimum.
That minimum. Yeah.
In proximity to it, it will say don't come any higher.
Yeah, that's
Because that was when I told you guys elevate, right?
Controls resisting.
That's fascinating.
We were called out to intercept an object that was found on radar. We went to the location it was supposed to be at. We circled a couple times and were requested to climb another 1,000 feet. The instrumentation started to bounce and the collective basically was frozen.
And so you tried to, you guys flew up and it was a class 7, right, that you were chasing with the helicopter? And then it was like this, it was really interesting in this last video you guys released, there was like this almost like barrier you couldn't get beyond or something?
No, so to get back to the story, so we had class 7s on the 4th day, one hovered over us and we went to bed that night thinking, what's going to happen next? Like, what happens? Like, okay, so they've done everything that you could do to indicate we're interested in you. They've flown in beam. They must know whoever's operating these so we can see them. They must know that we're on the hill looking at them. They, like, for sure they must know. When we fly a helicopter towards them, they evade it. So they know that there's some kind of action force in the vicinity of them, right? Some kind of action element, us. So on the 5th day, I went to bed thinking, what's more aggressive? Is it going to come down and land? Is it going to blow us up? Is it going to hit us with energy? Like, is it going to send us a text message? Like, what's going to happen with this UAP that's more aggressive than what it did so far? What should we expect? And so that night, Jordan, our Psionic lead, if you will, came up to me and Alex like, hey, tomorrow we're going to see, a conflict in the sky. We're going to have different UAPs are going to come in and there's going to be...
He sensed that.
He said that.
Whoa.
And he said to me and Alex, and I've since talked to Jordan. I said, Jordan, never do that to me again, ever. If you ever come up to me again, bring a damn camera with a date time group in the screen, record you telling us this prediction, and then mail it to somebody outside of our group so that there's proof that it transited to a third party because his prediction came true.
Yeah.
Right? Literally, that's what happened on the 5th day. We had jellyfish at a distance. We had extreme, I will just say, interference with our systems. Typically, we'd never seen jellyfish interfere with us in the last several years. And up to this day, the 4 days preceding it, we had mild interference with our systems, disconnecting from the primary sensors when the jellyfish were in vicinity. But on the 5th day, the interference was constant for 2 hours. And because it's constant, we can't see the jellyfish. Our primary sensor doesn't connect. We can't use it. So we started looking to try and figure out what's going on. That's when we discovered the class 2 Tic-Tac and the Manta Ray in the sky hiding behind the terrain.
That's right.
Between us and the jellyfish.
That's so fast.
Right? And what's really, really crazy here is there have been 2 instances of UAP reacting seemingly to our intent. So around 2003, we were running an event and we had the opportunity to bring, for the government event, we brought an energy weapon with us. And so we had this energy weapon up on the hill and we're doing things with it for the government project.
Just microwave battery?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
And we saw a class 6 coming through our event, right? And this was extracurricular in our own time. And somebody from another group was like, hey, let's aim that thing at that UAP and see what happens if we energize it. So we're like, sure, let's just see what happens, right? So this person went to move. It was there was no electronic gimbal. It was like a manual antenna. You had to feed horn. You had to turn towards the UAP. So he's like, goes out there a couple, call it 60, 70 feet from our operating area, runs out there and starts turning it towards it. Mid-turn, before he could actually turn it to the UAP, the UAP hit us with an energy weapon.
Whoa.
Right? And that energy weapon turned our systems off, as in OFF, as in blank screens.
Wow.
It was working and then it was in the off position.
Yeah.
And it happened to systems that were not connected to the same network and that were not used together. So I think there were 3 separate systems that turned off. Wow. All right. So did the UAP know that we were going to try to send energy towards it, high energy microwave towards it?
Seems like it.
And did it react? I think so.
Yeah.
Because it's never happened since, because we've never tried that again.
Yeah.
And we can't try it now commercially because that's highly illegal. No one should do that in the United States. You should go to jail. Like, that's not a laughing matter. The FCC will get you.
Yeah.
or the FAA or whoever it is.
Yeah.
You can't just go do that.
Does that concern you at all? Just that interaction? Does that make you think twice about? Because you hear rumors of directed energy being shot at UAP, and I don't know. I feel conflicted about that. It feels like a possibly dangerous, territory. You guys you're mostly doing just psionic based, or not psionic based stuff, but trying to get them to land, or are you doing any of the shooting?
No. So Skywatcher as a team, we are not aggressive. We are not trying to go to war or have destroy American or Chinese or Russian equipment in the sky and
create an intergalactic battle.
Or have a war with NHI or whatever the hell it is. Like we're not trying to do that. We don't want that pain. We don't want that responsibility.
Yeah.
We are approaching this very scientifically and peacefully. And so those activities are activities that we want to do. And if those are done, the government can go do that. We have no interest in harming or destroying any of this material or craft or beings. Like that's not our interest at all. It's quite the opposite, actually. And our desire is that one lands. And that is, with the psionic team, what we're trying to do is get one to land peacefully, right? We don't need to harm or kill or maim or destroy. We want to observe, collect, and understand. So that was the first time that we had UAPs react to our action or intentions, we believe. The second time was with the Tic-Tac in February. I saw a Manta Ray, was watching the Manta Ray, and then it disappeared again. The Manta Ray and the Tic-Tac were hiding from our primary sensor. They approached from the one avenue of approach we couldn't see for miles and miles, and they hid behind terrain, and they used the terrain to mask their presence from our sensors that were being taken out anyway by we believe, the jellyfish. So I sat there for probably 20 minutes and watched a Manta Ray in the sky. It looks kind of like a trash bag that never descends, or just an amorphous shape that's rolling and tumbling constantly. But then also a Tic-Tac right next to it. So they were both in the sky, kind of about the same place, about 800 meters elevation, about 800 meters away. We're watching them. Manta Ray for about 20, and then the Tic-Tac for about 5. So at this time, we did have the helicopter up on the hill, and we had a lot of security because, again, this is day 5 of anomalous, weird things happening that never happened before. So we are expecting something interesting. Jordan predicted it, and it's happening as he said. So I'm like, hey, I want to get in the helicopter and go see the Tic-Tac. Let's go chase it. So like, what else? What other data can we get now? We can't get radar. We can't get the high-end imagery because those systems are off, right? They're not connectable. This is the day I told you where our secondary systems weren't ready to go. So we're looking at them with binoculars and scopes, and I'm like, well, let's go get more data. So I turned to run down the hill. It's about a 200-meter run to get to the helicopter. I get 10 steps, and the Tic-Tac starts flying away. Whoa. So it sat there for over 25, 30 minutes while we observed the Manta Ray and the Tic-Tac, and then we watched, once that was gone, we watched only the Tic-Tac. And then it just so happens that as I turn ready to run down the helicopter and on the radio, hey, start the helicopter up deliberately to go fly to it, that's when it decides to depart. So did it know that I was coming to it? Did it understand my intention to fly up to it and pay it a visit?
Yeah.
That's
amazing. Does that when you that or the energy weapon anecdote, do you ever worry that it's just this crazy game of cat and mouse where the cat can mind read the mouse or whatever, and you guys are the mouse, trying to sense these things, and it's like, if they can show that level of kind of, prediction of intent, is will we ever get to, clear resolution on these things?
Well, I don't know, right? And
honest answer.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. Like it is a cat and mouse game. It feels like it does feel like. How many times do you have to fly advanced technology in beam of a radar to know how it works, right? Like how many years do you have to do it in a row, right? So like clearly they are presenting as if they are measuring our capabilities and responses. But if there's an intelligent entity doing this, do they not understand already? So clearly, in my opinion, it's less about our technology and more about our reaction, right? So they know we can see them. They know it because that week on the 5th day, we chased like 7 or 10 UAPs before that. So it knew we were going to chase it, right? It must have known, whoever's controlling it knew we were going to chase it. The question is, why would they put themselves in beam and put themselves in that apparently vulnerable position repeatedly? So as you get into the philosophical here, it's really hard to understand and see through, okay, why are they putting themselves in this apparently vulnerable position, right? To what end? Do they want us to fly to it? Do they want us to interact with it? I believe so. And are they aware of our intentions? I don't know, because our intentions have not always been pure, right? Like I said, somebody aimed an energy weapon at one of these things, and it took action, right? So is it, how does that fit? I really wish we could sit and have a philosophical discussion with a philosopher and say, like, let's walk the dog on each possibility, because there might be enough data to understand that.
Do the psionic assets, are they able to overlay some of possible information? Like you see Jordan predicting, the next day there's going to be like a war in the sky, and it's accurate. To me, that would, and I know some of his story, and out of respect for him, I'll let him come out with that whenever. But, does that make you think, a lot of this stuff he probably, believes philosophically about this stuff might be right as well? Like, it increases the probability that, the psionic assets are probably correct about maybe other things. Do they have any sort of metaphysical worldview around this that is possibly informative or illustrative of what you're looking at? Or
we haven't figured that out yet, right? We purposefully maintain a separation from the psionic team.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. It's like a double blind or something.
Yeah, precisely. Like we're up on a hill with our system using the dog whistle. We are not telling the psionic team, we have tried this in the past, but typically we do not tell a psionic team there's something inbound. They have no idea what's happening up on the hill. They can't see it. They can't hear it. They don't know.
Wow.
Right? And then we're documenting their call outs and their descriptions and their efforts. We've done that 2 or 3 events in a row. Probably morph that and change that under guidance of our science team. To kind of understand, hey, if they know nothing and we don't really know what they're doing, which is also the case, then we can't, to our knowledge, make an effect, and we can't pollute the other's minds with what's going to happen.
Smart way to do it. Right? They must have. I mean, I've met a few of them, and it seems like they have some pretty interesting backgrounds and past history where, and I think this is going to come out probably increasingly in the next year or two, there are these kind of gifted and talented education programs in the United States that recruited often children to be kind of, high psi assets in various cases, and probably for various use cases, maybe part of the remote viewing stuff that Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ started, back in the day, Stargate, Grill Flame, all of that. And then maybe some UAP related stuff as well. What do you think about their stories? Do you think that that is a widespread program in the U.S. where they're recruiting kind of these younger people?
So
Stranger Things, is that a real show?
Yeah, I have to ask.
Based on reality?
It's a really good question, man. Talking to some of these folks, their stories are very believable. Some of them have more than a story. They have data, they have documents, they have places and names and dates that go with their stories. So I'd offer that there's that data supports their story to a degree. It doesn't prove or disprove anything psionic, but it does show a programmatic nature of something occurring. Now, is that programmatic nature due to their own condition or their own self? Or is it due to a third party instituting something with them for a purpose? And I don't know that there's enough data to know that yet. Perhaps somebody has compiled that data and can show that disparity or that proof, or actually not disparity, but parity between the stories to say, like, there is a systematic program. I would offer, a lot of times you have to lean on Occam's razor. You have to go with, like, are people really that evil? Is our government really that evil? Are they really that subversive of the American way? I think there can be limited cases like that, but I think they're limited. And I think when you look at this, again, through Occam's razor, you have to lean on, no, probably not. And if there is, it's very, very rare or done with.
I'm with you. I mean, I think there is a there. I think some of these programs did exist, and then it's hard for me to believe it was extremely widespread because we just have more of this stuff coming out. But we did experiment with parapsychology. I do think you get into, deeper levels of government or aerospace, and I do think people believe that the mind-matter duality thing is not as simple as, academia sort of presents it. Class 4, what are we looking at there?
Class 4 is the orb. We've only seen that a couple years in a row. When we did see the Class 4, we were doing certain activities for the government that we can't do commercially, and we're only able to do them for a limited amount of time with the government. So I can't describe those activities. I can just say that they were extraordinary and different. And when we did those activities is when we noted the Class 4. We think it's about 2-3 years apart across. We've only seen it in the infrared, shortwave, and medium wave infrared. That could be due to atmospheric conditions, dust in the air, or other reasons. We've never had them on radar that we know of. Again, we have a lot of data to cull through, and it's expensive and hard to analyze. We're working on that. So we relied on, look, there's an object, it's below the cloud deck, it's not returning a laser rangefinder return, it's moving against the wind, and what we observed was two of them flew in together on either side of our valley and then camped for about 4 hours, 3.5 hours, while actually Class 1s did something, again, extraordinary and different. And then after the Class 1s were done, they flew out together, right? So I don't think celestial bodies could represent like that or present like that, excuse me. I don't think, I don't know of any craft that can, we know the cloud deck wasn't that high that day. In our estimation, any drone or helicopter would have been hearable and visible under those conditions. And these were right here in the sky, just above us, 45-degree angle off each horizon and elevated. And they moved in tandem, right, as a pair. So again, that goes against like celestial bodies. It goes against any known technology. And so we believe that is a class of UAP. It could be another class that we've never seen do that activity before, but we have limited data, right? And we state as much.
Which class did you add with the psionic assets, which you just started working with? The egg.
The Class 9.
Okay, fascinating. Well, that dovetails with Jake's story where he said that when he retrieved the egg in, I think it was the mid-2000s on the range in California, there were some psionic assets present trying to call the thing in. So that's fascinating. Class 5, what are we looking at?
Class 5 is the Manta Ray. It looks like a black body object that might have perhaps vents on top of it that emanate some kind of, I'll just call it plasma, not necessarily a plasma, although I do believe plasma is seen in conjunction with UAPs often, but we don't know that, right? So emanate something that looks like plasma-ish, and it tumbles and rotates. Again, not too dissimilar from a balloon, but it does things that balloons don't do, like blink out of visibility or fly against the wind. It does other things. So we've seen the Class 5 only twice, I guess 3 times now. So we have more observations recently in 2025. I think the last time we saw one was like 23. And we don't know a whole lot about it. We have it on radar. We have it on all the bands of imagery. We don't have any SIGINT for it. It's probably about 2.5 meters in diameter, and it just seems to fly through. It doesn't really stop and smell the music. Smell the roses, excuse me. It doesn't really hang out. It just kind of moves through and then leaves. Until the event with the Tic-Tac where it hovered in the sky and hung. So
that was so fascinating. It almost sounds like the Manta and the Tic-Tac were like allied against the jellyfish. Like there was this
like definitely conflict. There's definitely
so interesting, like War of the Worlds or something. Okay, Class 6. What are we looking at?
So the Class 6 is what we call the bright star. It vibrates a lot, and it does things to our equipment, whether it's shutting off our equipment or interferes in other ways with our equipment. To modify what we think we're seeing, right? So
there's some signature management.
There's absolutely some signature management with the Class 6. So it doesn't like us to track it, right? It doesn't like us to put eyes on it, we think.
That sounds like possibly human, but I don't know.
Like all things are possible here. But the Class 6 vibrates, oscillates very fast, so fast that if you're looking at it under camera, you think you see 3 of them. one unit of measure of the craft to the left and to the right. Really, it's one vibrating, and you know that because it comes out of the oscillation and stops, and then you see it's one craft, and then it'll turn back on, and it moves so fast that our system thinks it's a propeller. So when it oscillates, it's a propeller. It thinks, interprets it as, and then it'll stop oscillating, and then just kind of continue flying, and then the radar will indicate that it's not a propeller anymore.
Wow.
Right. So it does change brightness. It'll seem to like get very energetic, much like the Class 3 blob does. It'll emanate more light as it vibrates really fast, and then when the light kind of dies down, it stops vibrating as fast until it stops vibrating completely. And then it'll go back, almost like a cycle, almost like somebody starting a process, and that process, that chain continues until it's exhausted, and then it returns to its old state. And that's kind of what the impression is of what we're seeing with the Class 6.
Fascinating.
Class 8 is the Hornet.
Okay.
We've only seen a Class 8 a couple times.
Interesting.
Yep. Kind of like the Class 5, it's kind of elusive. We see it a whole bunch.
Anything specific that you did around that time where the Hornet entered, or?
No, but the Hornet was the last UAP I chased in March.
Yeah. And that was, you were telling me on the phone, you got a little discombobulated or something?
No, that was actually the Tic Tac.
That was the Tic-Tac story you told.
The Class 8 is the one we flew within about 200 meters and couldn't see it.
Okay. And so what happened when you chased the Hornet, Class 8?
It continued on its flight path, didn't deviate, didn't change, but we just couldn't see it and document it.
Interesting.
Right? So it just continued on a very slow, it was only moving like 20 knots.
Whoa.
Super, super slow.
Interesting.
Antagonizing. So slow, we were just doing orbits, trying like get in, chasing it in orbits, trying to get aligned to it so we could visualize as we went past it. We just couldn't.
Wild.
Couldn't ever see it.
Class 9.
The Class 9 is the egg.
That's the egg. So this is so fascinating. Is this the hope? Because I spoke to Jake, I think it was in January, and we had a really interesting discussion. He exuded a lot of confidence. He said in 6 months, we're going to get this thing to land.
If all things go well, before, I'm trying not to say a date, but within the first half of 2025, we hope to do a demonstration and invite key members of the public from institutions and demonstrate this, and maybe even get something to the ground. And that's going to answer a lot of questions.
That would be absolutely insane.
And I don't know, maybe that's a, Elon Musk style timeline that's a little aggressive or something, but is it? Can you guys get the egg to land? Is that, presumably I would assume that's the hope because of his past experience. I look at some of these other classes, and to me there's such a gap between like the Manta Ray or Hornet or some of these things and like, a concrete object like on the ground that you can like reverse engineer and fly. So is the hope the egg, and can you guys bring it down pretty quickly, through peaceful psionic means? Or
I have no expectation.
Okay.
I literally don't know.
Yeah.
Like, is the egg a real craft?
Yeah.
Is the thing we imaged with our rudimentary imaging system at the time even there? Right? If it is there, can Jordan or someone else control it? Right? If they can't control it, are they able to tell it to land and have it land? I would offer in known history that has never happened. Right? And if it has happened, it's in a closed program that nobody knows about.
Well, according to Jake, it's happened.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
So show me the money.
Yeah, right.
I'm open-minded.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. I would love for that to happen.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
That'd be wild.
Will it happen?
Yeah.
Will it happen in 6 months? I have no idea.
Yep.
When I like it to, of course I would.
Is that the one you're holding out hope for as far as some sort of retrieval of actual material, or are there others that you feel might be able to, you might be able to derive material from? Or
any of these craft appear to have material and technology that we don't understand. So if any of them were to land or crash, that would be very interesting. I can say
some could be non-physical though. Some are or some sort of plasma ball thing, right?
I accept that that could be the case. Right? Some of them might be holograms or plasmoids or things that if they land, there's molten. The sand turns to glass or metal or whatever.
Right, sure.
I don't know. Sure. Why not? I believe we've seen 4 UAPs crash over the years.
Really?
Yep.
You've seen them crash?
We believe, and I say believe for a lot of reasons. We've seen 3 Class 1s when we were doing, in 2023, when we did something special for the government, the UAPs behaved differently. And we saw about 200 UAPs in a day over a 4-hour period. And they were almost all Class 1s at the time. And they were actually coming, instead of just flying through our airspace, they were coming from directly over us as if from space. So they would come straight down, ingress, and then they would egress out low level away from us. And they did it in 1s and 2s and 3s at a time. We saw about 200 of them total, 200 sorties. The Class 1s that are doing that, that's different, right? So as they were doing that, we saw 3 of them that instead of coming in the low level egressing, came in at an angle from directly overhead and just continued as if to the ground.
Whoa.
And they went below the ridge lines, and we never saw them come up.
Did you go look for them?
Yeah. So it was actually really bad timing. That year we had really epic rainfall. That afternoon, after the show was over, it rained for like 2 days straight.
Oh, man.
I had to wait about a week, and then I took a whole crew for a hunt for a cartel drone that had crashed. And we were out there looking for probably 6 or 8 hours. We found nothing. And again, what are we looking for? I'm looking for a glass crystal ball. I'm looking for a cube. I'm looking for a carcass. Like, what am I looking? A tetrahedron? Like, what am I looking for here? No idea. And some of these deserts are extremely rugged. And at the time, I didn't have a helicopter. And then in 2024, we saw a Class 8 that started 3,500 meters above us as it came through in its sortie.
This is the Hornet.
And then finished its sortie just a couple hundred meters over the ground, again, right at terrain level. So we went out this January and flew for probably 2 hours, looking for anything. Again, what are we looking for? I don't know. Extremely rugged and difficult terrain. So we think we've seen them crash without us, to our knowledge, doing anything to cause that. But we have yet to find any wreckage or find anything to show like there is something here.
So fascinating. What do you think? Sorry, I keep saying it so bad, but it's just like, it's just so interesting. Do you think that the government could be red teaming you guys at all? I mean, you were in California near Palmdale, and then you were also in Findlay in Texas, and those are near, pretty sensitive training facilities, test sites, that sort of thing. Do you think that any of the prime aerospace contractors are throwing stuff at you to kind of mess with your reconnaissance systems or mess with your detection systems? Or
so I would offer, my opinion is no. And the reason why is the craft we are seeing are conducting explicitly illegal operations on the skies. They're invisible. There's no markers. They don't have ADS-B. They don't have AIS. They don't have anything on board to show their presence. Also, they're flying adjacent to or in commercial air corridors, right, where all commercial traffic flies. And they're flying at flight levels. We see them at flight level 180. We see them, I presume, higher than 180. We know higher, but we can't measure it because it's too high for a radar to reach. So whoever is doing this, if it is domestic, like they need to get their affairs in order before they get caught. Because if it is domestic, then they're breaking the law, feloniously.
Would you have say a Mick West? We just talked about debunkers, Mick West or somebody like that out on the range to try to stress test, what you're doing?
Yeah, I think we're willing to work with certain people. Frankly, personally, like I have no time for debunkers. If someone starts saying I want to debunk, I just kind of get angry and kind of want to lash out. Like just be open-minded. Just listen, take off your lenses of opinions and just open your mind and accept. Let us share some knowledge so we can learn together. Should we invite out a Mick West or whatever? Maybe that could happen. But frankly, like I have no interest in him.
But you would take a credentialed scientist out there who doesn't necessarily have an a priori interest in UFOs.
Yeah, absolutely. Because understand the difference. One entity is hostile and extremely opinionated, and it has a preconceived notion of what you're saying, and the other entity is open-minded and willing to understand what you're saying before they formulate their opinion.
For sure.
And so the hostile one, like, again, I treat hostility with hostility. I have no desire to work with, talk to, interact, or face with them, because bad things will happen, and it's bad for everybody.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd rather focus on the people who actually are open-minded, have the intelligence necessary to understand the problem, and aren't simpletons.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What's your take on the Jersey drone situation? We were just talking about that before we started rolling, and it still feels so frustratingly inconclusive. You have the White House saying that they were FAA research drones after Trump, I think, told his special assistant, go look into this, and that was just such an unsatisfying answer for so many residents of Jersey. What do you think was happening?
I think one of our adversaries has the ability to fly with impunity and operate in our airspace, and we are helpless to stop it.
That's insane. That's really scary. And any reason to believe that you can discuss publicly? Or?
I think that Langley Air Force Base, based on news articles, was probably done by China.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was 17 days of just completely unperturbed incursion.
Yes, exactly. And I think that, we know that the HAB, the balloon that flew through, was from China.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only one entity that has a past performance, to my knowledge, of flying in our airspace with apparent impunity, with us not doing anything to stop it, and that's China. So why wouldn't you naturally arrive at a sustained intrusion in our airspace? Why wouldn't you assume it's China until proven otherwise? If you have two explicit examples of very high likelihood being China, or we know it's China. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, are the craft we're seeing Group 3 drones?
Mm-hmm.
Are they UAPs operated by China?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the permutations thereof? Like, what does it mean if it is or isn't a UAP?
Can they carry payloads if they're flying with exotic flight principles? I mean, that's a really scary possibility.
And what is the purpose?
Mm-hmm.
If it is a China or a Russia or whoever it is,
mm-hmm.
to what end? Why would they do that to the American populace? Why would they continue when they know we're looking? Is it to show our incompetence? Yeah. Is it to derail our national security apparatus and say, like, look how incompetent you are, we can do what we want? Is it because...
That's why I have trouble believing it's China or Russia.
Yeah.
It's just so, I mean, what a flex, right? Like, if you're doing that over residential neighborhoods in Jersey, that's kind of an act of war. Well, that's serious.
I think that's why our government's constrained,
mm-hmm.
right? Because on the one hand, our government, whose job is to protect the nation,
mm-hmm.
can't come out and be incompetent.
No.
Like, it cannot be done.
Totally.
Like, they have to be able to protect us. I think in the 60 Minutes article or episode they did on this, they spoke with the NORAD commander,
mm-hmm.
and he said something that was very telling. He said that we have allowed technology, the threat, to grow, and we don't have technology to match. Something along those lines, basically meaning that maybe whoever is doing this has a capability that we have not grown defensive technology enough to counter yet.
It's freaky. Well, then you have the Trump statement at the time where he goes, Biden knows, they know what this is. It's coming from a garage. It's very strange. We know where the garage is. And that makes me think NHI.
Our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should.
And then you had that, I think, sheriff, the local sheriff in New Jersey, saying that he thought he saw them come out of the water. And, transmedium is this, important observable of UAPs. And, there are rumors of underwater bases and that sort of thing. So that made me think maybe NHI. But it's also, I would talk about this with Jake, it could be a mix. You could use the presence of NHI UAP to opportunistically flood the zone, and then it's extremely hard to figure out what's what.
Yeah, I think so. I'm open to all concepts here.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, my opinion is that it's probably an adversary. It's probably China.
Yeah.
But
that's wild.
There's so many unknowns.
Yeah.
Like how do you figure it out and tell the tale?
I hope at the highest level we've figured it out, whether it's adversary or NHI. I hope somebody knows, because
I hope they do too. I like to have faith in my government and believe that they are doing the right thing. I know I was in the government for a long time. I know a lot of government officials, generally very, very good people, patriots who love their country and want nothing but the best for all of us. So I really hope that they do have this figured out and that they have a capability and that we can rest easy and not worry about it. But there's the potential that some of that might not be the case. That maybe they haven't figured it out. So.
In 5 years from today, do you have any hopes, dreams, expectations for Skywatcher?
Yeah, I would like to have Skywatcher as part of the Golden Dome. I would like to be proactive on the UAP problem. We have a technology to detect UAPs. We're growing that technology. That technology should be everywhere. Not because I'm a capitalist and want to make a lot of money. Of course, most people want to make money and be independently wealthy. But for the national security implications of, here's a phenomena, here's a thing on our airspace moving with impunity through our air corridors, and nobody knows anything about it. So if we deploy the right sensors in the right mix, we can become masters of our airspace and become air aware, if you will, of what's going on. So that's why we started Skywatcher. That's why we're developing the technology. And in 5 years, it'd be wonderful if it's deployed. And then now we can have a body of knowledge and data on this phenomena, on this threat, on this instance of what's occurring, and be able to make educated decisions at that point.
Have you seen the movie Arrival?
Yes.
Do you ever think, like, a lot of what you guys are doing is, kind of initiating contact in some ways, and is it worth getting a symbologist on staff, or some cultural anthropologist or something, or is it worth thinking about how, if we are interacting with them eventually in a more intimate way than just sensors, making sure that those first interactions are friendly and good to the extent that that might dictate future relations?
I mean, possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the Skywatcher team is first contact, right? If our government has been interacting with these things for decades, that's first contact. We're second, third, or 90th, right, in the list. We're just the first public.
Well, you hear rumors around that stuff where it's like, I don't know, I have no idea how much weight to put in this, but it's like the aliens or the NHI are coming back for their stuff, and they're not happy that, the way the government has interacted with the material and that sort of thing. It's, to weaponize this stuff, and it's not to create, civil side propulsion or whatever. And that could totally be a bunch of mushy-brained, woo-woo UFO people, just saying, of which I can be one sometimes or whatever, just engaging in wishful thinking. But, do you lend any credence to any of that stuff, or?
I think there's a lot of smoke, right? I don't know where the fire is at, right? It's really, really hard to see through. Again, I said before that I think that there are elements of our government and other governments who are using information operations warfare on this topic. I don't know their motives. I don't know to what end, but I think it's in our face that that's happening. Look at the second episode and look at Reddit and how it blew up with all these apparent bots talking a lot of negative trash about Skywatcher and balloons. Like, somebody paid money for that. Like, is Mick West working for somebody? Is somebody paying him money?
That's a good question.
Right? Are these paid actors?
Yeah.
Are those paid actors employing different technology to subvert knowledge or modify knowledge, right? And to what end? So I do think that there's evidence there. That evidence could be studied. Again, that costs money to do. Right? It costs a lot of money to go and research a bunch of Reddit users and show it's a botnet. And it's doable. It's just expensive, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's my belief that those things are happening. Maybe it's not America. Maybe it's our adversaries who are controlling some of those messages for their own motives and means. But as a civilian, it's really hard to say why. But the what, I think, is fairly obvious that is happening.
Yeah. James Fowler, this is an honor, man. I appreciate your time. This is fascinating, and I'm curious to see where all of your efforts go.
Thanks, Jesse.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
All right.